Waking up with you for the thousandth time. Sipping coffee and juice, reading the New York Times. Yeah. You told me I'm the only one, but now you think you've had your fun. You hope I had a good time. Goodbye, we're done. I got you inside my head, playing every moment over and over again. I thought we'd survive instead. You're a heartbreaker and now heartbroken. Waking up with him before the sun. We pour coffee and then read the Chicago Sun. Yeah. He tells me that I've changed his life, and now he wants me as his wife. Well, we had a good run, was fun, goodbye. I still got you inside my head, playing every moment over and over again. I thought we'd survive instead. You're making heartbreakers of the heartbroken. You're making heartbreakers of the heartbroken. You know, he was a good man. I should have warned him. I should have warned him that I'm an imposter. How does it feel siring so many monsters? And all I am.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to the TTRPG Theater. I am your host, Rob Phantom NJ. And tonight, once again, I have with me a special guest, George Ultra Magnus Hardy from mostly from the Trollord Games Discord. And if you've been to any conventions, you've seen him there as well. Most recently, GaryCon. But yeah, George, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Rob?
I am all right. Doing all right.
Great. Good.
Another day in paradise, you know.
Standard.
I really wish winter would just give it up already. It's freaking close to we're getting into mid-April. Could we stop already with the 30-degree weather? Because I've had enough. Holy crap.
And the rain for us is bad. Not even rain.
It's drizzle. It's the cold mist that just gets to you and makes you feel like a hell of a lot worse than you have any right to feel in April. Did I mention it's April? It's the 10th of April. Lord Kazumba J, how you doing, sir? Good to see you. Know you're recovering from your surgery? Yeah, there we go. Oh man, yeah. I'll be tuning in tomorrow night to get a look at the terrain work that you're doing, and try to make sure that I wake up in time to check out some of the stream on Saturday. Yeah, I did see that. As a matter of fact, I have a reason to wake up on Saturday. Because I've got something to do Saturday afternoon. Probably right about the time that you're finishing up. Be playing with Guild Superior for we're doing a fundraiser for the ACLU. Playing some Shadow Dark. So I'd created a character. They're doing a Shadow Dark kind of like open game in their Discord, and I had created a character like 5-6 months ago, maybe longer than that. And it suddenly occurred to me that I hadn't had a chance to actually play it yet. Things kind of got in the way, so the character's just been sitting there. Got a half-orc fighter named Grieg who's got really good stats. And, this is a charity game with Dave, Guild Superior. We're going to die. We're all going to die. It's just going to die.
Well, how long do you think you'll be alive for?
Oh, no, he'll probably let us go at probably at least half the stream. But the last game I played with Dave was not this past GaryCon, the year before. We played a GaryCon session. We played a Shadow Dark session in the hallway, and we all met with a terrible end. It turned out we were the evil we were hunting for, and there were lots of kind of PvP at the end because we were all trying to tear each other apart. After we tore apart all the townspeople, because they realized before we did that we were the evil. It's kind of fun.
Oh. That's a different con event.
This was one of those hallway games. This was not a scheduled game.
Okay.
So once again, I'd like to remind people that we are sponsored by Trollord Games, and we do have a giveaway going on. ! Ticket to enter. It's for $10 digital product coupon, good towards any PDF from the Trollord Games site. I should mention, for the benefits of those who were not aware, that if you are someone who likes to purchase the PDF and the physical product at the same time, the coupon can be applied to that purchase if you do the PDF and print version together, which is good because the PDFs are usually about $7. So it'll apply the full 10. So you actually get a little bit of further discount than you would towards the print version. And with that, I'm just got the notification yesterday that the Adventurers Armory physical copy is on its way.
Yeah, I've been waiting for that for a while. I feel I need it, but I don't feel I need it. A lot of mixed feelings.
The war mounts. I want the war mounts. That's my big thing. I'll admit, the part of that I'm most interested in, and we're already off topic, but that's fine because that's what we do here. If we haven't gone completely off the rails, and are you really talking about TTRPGs? I will admit that as far as the Adventurers Armory, I'm actually more interested in the Monstrous. I have the PDFs. I really should look at it, but the Monstrous Armory to me is probably more interesting than the Adventurers Armory is because, listen, how many versions of a flail do you need?
Yeah. Good point.
It's one of those things where kind of like for flavor, and if you want to do for descriptive purposes, it's kind of weird. It would almost be better off as kind of sort of like the Storyteller's Thesaurus. They should have like a guide to arms and armory and just leave it at that and do a descriptive thing so that you can add some descriptiveness to your character's thing. The idea of adding advanced tactics via the weapons is problematic. It doesn't fit in great with the game.
Right.
Suddenly everyone's going looking for the next bearded axe is what you end up with, which in and of itself is problematic.
Oh yeah, you just go to the equipment list and go down the page for
what does the most damage and what can I cause the most mayhem with. That's kind of what it is. Hey, Real Longshot, good to see you. We are just getting started. Um, yeah, so yeah, I'm looking forward. I want to. I want to take a look at the monstrous armory portion of it because you get these standard creatures that it's and they're damaged by weapon types. Like yeah, maybe we can have some can have some fun with the weapons that they're using and see what we can do there.
Yeah.
Granted, anything a human can use, they could probably use, but I'll take a look. Hey,
Well,
Mike,
or
good to see you. Thank you for lurking. And thank you for listening. That's awesome. Real appreciate it. But yeah, the war mounts, is what I'm more curious about. Um, I don't. I think they left out mountain goats, and I'm not sure how that happened. You got your dwarven mountain goats is a thing.
yeah,
It's,
or just even I think with the monsters and the weapons, I'd like to see something new for like a bugbear or a gnoll, especially the gnoll. I think Steve does something special with his gnolls where they lay on their back and pull back a great bow or some equivalent war bow type thing. Maybe not practical, but it's different.
they're sitting there with their paws in the thing and just
Yeah,
pulling back.
yeah. Maybe their teeth, who knows, but it works.
Zombie mountain goats. There's a little Anna Meyer work going through the. Oh man, Anna Meyer's zombie goats from hell.
What about a bear? Dwarves
Bug
on
bug
bears.
koala.
Oh no, no. A
It's
war
real cute, but
sloth,
it'll
maybe.
kill you. Kills you with cuteness. Oh man, that's funny. Um, so getting on to tonight's topic before we just completely forget it and just go completely off the rail. We're gonna talk about basic GMing tips, and I guess the first GM tip should probably be expect things to go off the rails because they will.
Yeah.
Don't think of it as a bug or something to be overcome because it's a feature. It's going to happen. I say that only partially tongue in cheek.
Well,
Um, let me get to the thing. I had the question list that you had put together because George is really good about putting together different questions for me.
well,
Uh,
and I think you hit on a nice topic right there. Is having to improvise too. When it goes off the rails, you're totally improvising. Uh,
yeah. Yeah, and there's something to that, and I do have, and yeah, we've got that. Actually, we have that as kind of one of the questions, or part of the one of the questions. So I, you know, we mentioned about the fact that one of the things that you had put down is like, where do you like to focus on your games? So I guess the first really basic GM tip that I can think of is figure out that there's always the question of what game do you run, and I mean there's kind of the default. There's let's be honest. The default for most people is D&D 5e because it's the it's the biggest name. It's the name everybody knows. It's what's out there. There's a massive player base. Um, and that's fine. I mean, if that's what if that's what's going to make you happy, run it. Um, the thing that I would one of the things that we're looking at, and you had put down is like, well, where do you like to focus on your games? Is it role playing, combat, politics, making allies, and honestly, all of those really can be in any game that you run. Some games
yeah.
lend itself better to it, some don't. Um, thinking about that as far as like what kind of game you want to. There's also, I guess, the genre you want to run. I mean,
Mhm.
even when we're talking fantasy versus like sci-fi or even steampunk, um, for fantasy, there's the question is like, well, what kind of fantasy you want? I mean, you yeah, you're a fan of various castles and crusades, Hyperborea, and various things. What do you like? Are you a low magic, low fantasy type? Are you high fantasy, low magic, high fantasy, high magic? I don't know what I don't even know what low fantasy high magic really means. Seems to be a little contradictory, but what the hell? Let's go with it.
Well, or just the simple gritty world, right?
Gritty
You know,
world, yeah. When it's funny when you say gritty. First of all, hey Chris, good to see you. We're doing well here. And Dirty Dwarf, Simple Man, killing, looting, and distributing pamphlets. That's an inside joke. Dirty Dwarf has a paladin in a campaign who likes to hand out pamphlets. It's part of the shtick, and we love it. We love it.
orcs
Um,
go with it.
you mentioned gritty, and it's kind of funny. Anytime someone says gritty to me, the first thing I come up with, I don't even do. I'm not even like looking like grim dark dungeon crawls. I think city adventures. Um, I remember I remember the first time that I got a hold of one of the, I think it was, I don't remember if it was a first edition or second edition supplement for AD&D for it was Lankmar Swords of the I think it was Lankmar Swords of the Undercity.
Okay.
And at the time, the City of Greyhawk, I was running stuff in the world of Greyhawk already, but the City of Greyhawk box set hadn't come out yet.
Mhm.
So it was like the first real city type supplement I had, and it was just this feel to it that everything was dangerous. Every corner was dangerous. There was stuff lurking about. It honestly, I was also a kid in the 1980s, so I had New York City about 5 miles away from
Okay.
me, which
Yeah.
around that time had that kind of scary. You don't wander this area alone, by
Oh,
yourself. As a matter of fact, I'm not entirely sure I would have felt safe walking with an adult in New York City at the time. That was back when Times Square was a very, very different place than it is now.
very.
Oh my goodness. Porn shops right all over the place.
Mhm.
It was a very, very different world. But yeah, no, Lankmar captured that gritty, everything is dangerous feel for me. How
Well,
about you? What did gritty mean to you?
um, well, it's dirty.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that there's garbage on the streets, or um, you're nothing is clean. It's all recycled goods. Um, I would say the rarity of having soldiers in uniforms that are clean would be exceptionally different, or just exceptional.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and playing into it, it's the sword doesn't cut you clean. You know what I mean? You got scars. Just a
Camelot,
lot of
this
that
was
stuff.
not.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. Or there is Camelot, but it's rare to find Camelot. And if you do find Camelot, you have to wonder what is in Camelot, or why.
uh,
Why is this place different?
and it's funny because I can remember going like to the other. Then for me, there was the other end of the spectrum where you had the high fantasy, the wonder of Camelot being this magical place with all these knights wandering around and tournaments and jousts and such and all
Yeah,
this good. I mean, I remember running entire adventures just based upon of the different characters entering the different events, whether it be one-on-one combat, group combat, arenas, whatever the case may be, and just this you know just really courtly feel to it, all flowers and stuff. Oh, it's another the other side. Basically as far from gritty as you got. Despite the fact
yeah.
that that kind of scene probably would have been very gritty if in reality.
So
the
your games in particular, are they more gritty or are they more I I don't know how you run your Greyhawk games.
mine tend to be story focused. Um,
Mhm.
there's I like the adventure aspect to it. It can get gritty, like the 6 hour game that I ran to close up the first year ended up being pretty great. They were on the chase, and they were basically under peril from the moment they got there. There's a lot of politics. There's a lot of trying to figure out what's going. They were trying to figure out what was going on as it's happening. Um, but I do like I do like it to be story based. Um, only because I, I would like to at some point be able to get to the point where I can do terrain and miniatures and do a Lord Gazumba type game where I've got they get to wherever it is they are and have a more terrain based game. Maybe not on, never on that. I can't do it on that scale. I don't have the time or the equipment that I need. Um, but even on a smaller scale, having some terrain set up for the final combats and such would be cool. Because I'm still getting used to using virtual tabletops. Right now, all I do is use it for maps. So there's that issue where it's not something that I'd want to be too much of. I like them having
Yeah.
combats. I like them having to think about combats. But I enjoyed it a hell of a lot more. I doing it at the convention than I do when it's when we're sitting around the VTT on stream. And even if I was doing
Really?
just a regular game, a non-stream game, it'd be using a VTT. It's still not quite what I want.
Yeah. A little scatter terrain though goes a long way. I didn't get to see your game this year, but just putting out some terrain really livens up, I think, the table.
Oh yeah,
It
yeah.
draws the players in.
Yeah, I got to use I had the warlock tiles that I used for basically creating like an underground terrain, or even just basically a stone walled building and such. And then I had a couple of other pieces that I'd bought from Mike Saxton that I used for. Uh, it kind of created like a Stonehenge effect, which was perfect for the final battle of the, my Saturday game. It worked out nicely. So yeah, no, it really just takes a few pieces. That's all. That's all you need. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'd like to get to that point where I have enough pieces that I can mix and match, so it doesn't always look like the same thing every time, and I can change things up a bit.
Yeah.
But I'm not there yet. I need to get enough different buildings and
You need to buy
I
more.
need more. You're not wrong, Jay. The problem is when I get more, I need to paint more, which I'm having a hard enough time painting the stuff that I have. It's
We have
oh
to be
man.
careful or we'll accidentally summon Mike Saxton with his drop in the chat.
I think the only reason that there isn't a massive dent in my bank account is the fact that Mike lives 4 hours from me instead of two. Because if he lived 2 hours from me and I could just drive there and drive back same day, I would probably end up buying way too much stuff from him.
U-Haul
uh,
truck backed up to his garage.
I've got a CRV and nothing else to put in it other than so it's like, yeah, that'll get me in enough trouble, sure.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, the
There
only
you
trouble I
go.
get in was me and myself, but I could definitely do that. Hey, Jeremy, good to see you. Oh
Um,
boy. But yeah, no, I definitely I do need more, and I need to clear these tables off so that I can figure out a setup that works for me to be able to stream that kind of game.
right.
I probably should buy another laptop before the prices shoot way the hell up. Um, but yeah. So okay, well, and again we've kind of wandered off topic, but hey, again, basic GM tip number one: you will
So,
wander. You will.
um, question for you. Do you
Shoot.
ever do like themed games, like a Halloween type game or a festival or anything like
Um,
that?
that's you know, I want to say yes, but I'm having a really hard time coming up with a time that I actually ended up doing it. Like it's one of the things I've always
Uh-huh.
meant to do it. Um, one of the things I got from Reaper Miniatures, and it was literally one of the reasons that I subscribed for that I went in on Bones 5 was to
Hmm.
get the Overgourd, which I still have yet
Okay.
to paint. I started painting it. I wasn't happy with the way the paints are coming out. I've got a whole new set of paints, and I think I need to wash it and repaint the thing. If you don't know what the Overgourd is, it's a creation of art of Mike Disney. Um, think a beholder made of pumpkins.
Nice.
The
Okay.
main head the main head is a giant pumpkin, and the stalks, instead of eye stalks, there are pumpkins at the end, little pumpkins on the end of the stalk, and they'll have various powers. Yeah, he actually wrote up a stat block for it. The main stat block, the real stat block, is absolutely brutal. So it's like you do the Overgourd in varying degrees of it being fully alive and such.
Interesting.
It really is one of those things where I think one of these years I do want to pull it out at GaryCon. Um,
Okay.
the only problem I have is it if I play the Overgourd with enough power and thing, it will end up killing characters. It's,
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
uh, uh,
Um, I've done a themed Halloween game. That was interesting. Timing it, we ended up playing like 2 weeks before Halloween, but it still worked out. Um, and it's like a little bit of a twist with a horror game, right?
mhm.
You know, you throw in a few hags or whatever creatures of the night, and it really adds to the flavor.
Actually,
Especially, yeah, go
you
ahead.
think about it. The theme games that I've run have actually been Virtual Greyhawk Con because there is normally a theme to each Virtual Greyhawk Con. This
Okay.
past one was Fiends. I believe this past one was Fiends. So I did throw in. I did manage to sneak in some various Fiends for that and made use of Tome of the Unclean. Hey, Overcord, thank you for dropping in. And like the year before was Demons. Definitely had some demons at play there. So yeah, no, there's been some theme games.
Yeah. Especially if you add in some corruption or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And you can take innocent things and flip that into something dark, you know, the classic pumpkin patch with the vines, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And it's, I often joke about the Overgorge. Like you have to sneak in Linus somewhere and the Great Pumpkin, and it's his fault somehow because you just got
Yeah.
to go with that.
Or a grown
Yes,
up
Tanari,
Linus.
natural 20. Yes. R- ran into a clown beholder.
Wait,
Oh.
who's done that? Where is that?
DM
Is that?
Chris. DM Chris. In our
Oh,
Spelljammer game, we ran into a clown beholder. It's kind of funny. We talk about, I've talked about it in the past about doing stuff like, especially with the table that you don't know, and basically uh, consent in gaming forums and such. And it wasn't until honestly, I don't even know if it wasn't until I got on the internet and started talking to people about, just getting to know people a lot better around the TTRPG that I realized how freaked out most people are by clowns. It was like a complete and utter. And I mean, I know I've known people in person that a clown they shut down. It's like, I mean, I grew up with Bozo the Clown and Ronald McDonald, and it's like, I mean,
Um,
it has been around for a long time, but that wasn't, that was never enough to overcome the as far as like make clowns go bad for me.
we had one player we didn't understand at the time how afraid he was of spiders.
Spiders is an oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
spiders is another one. So yeah, basic GM tips. If you don't know, actually, honestly, even if you do know your players, check in with them on things that I mean, I will always recommend using consent in gaming forums just because especially if you're doing deeper games. If you're just doing the general lighthearted adventure, I mean, it's never, I'll never say don't use the forum. But but there are some things that it would never occur to you that it might just freak somebody out.
Right. Right.
Like we had a player, it was in my Friday night game, who not only could you not have spiders, you couldn't say spider. The word spider
Well,
would freak them out. Hey Keith, good to see you. So yeah,
yeah.
make sure you understand if there's anything that your friends or your players need to have left out. And one of the nice things about doing with the consent and gaming forums is you can have everybody fill one out. Leave it. They don't have to put their names to it. Don't have them put their names to it. Just a list of things that they do not want, or just basically do not want to be dealing with in the game. Um, I know, it's funny. I know Dave from Guild Superior has been doing a little differently. He's had a consent in gaming form that he fills out and gives to his players and says these are the things that we will not be we will not be having
Yeah.
in the game, and you generally figure out what they would be, but which is also another way. But I like going the other way around because again, there are things that you wouldn't expect. It's clown spiders, whatever the case may be, but don't have them put their names to it, because nobody wants people don't necessarily want to let everyone know. They might be embarrassed by it. Not that there's anything to be embarrassed about, but you don't want anyone to feel singled out. Is what I'm saying. Um. Hmm. So, now it's kind of funny. I'm not entirely sure we're dealing with basic DM tips, but what the hell? We'll just keep going. Keep going with it. Um. So one of the things that occurs to me when you're DMing the first time is, you know, what's the best way to get started in DMing? How you want to run your first game. You've decided that this is something that you want to do. This is you've gotten to play in some games. You've decided that you enjoy TTRPGs, and you think you want to give running a game a try. Where would you start? I have my thoughts on this, but I can hear what you would think as far as doing it.
Get my start as in getting the group together or just
Well,
running a game.
that's the question. Before the only thing that you've decided is that you would like to run TTRPGs. You want to be a GM.
I think in hindsight, the first thing is making sure I have the right players.
Okay.
When I first started, it was just finding a warm body to put in a chair.
Mm-hmm.
And in hindsight, well, you know what? It gave a lot of good experience with playing with different people that you normally may not have. And of course, you don't know who you want to play with to begin with. Uh, I think that that's the most important. And then after that, it was again, speaking more from experience, is having the right kind of fantasy that I want and that the players want as well.
Hmm.
And then from there, I think it's game style.
Okay. And Overcord, I agree. Most new DMs probably do start within their existing group. Now,
Yeah.
there are some who may not have an existing group. Like, one of the things that came about where, when the pandemic started was I joined a D&D Discord, that was tailored to having pickup games, and you'd have characters and such, but basically there was just DMs advertising games all over the place. You could play here, there. You never knew what you were going to be running or what type of game. They were mostly like one shots. um might go like 4 or 5 hours or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And but generally speaking, until you started playing a lot, you're mostly playing with strangers. And if
Yeah.
you haven't really had a chance to find your own people, that might be where you started. That
Yeah.
Overcord, that's awesome. Having people who are with you after all that time is a fantastic feeling. I say this with someone who, for the first 30 years of his life, or first 30 years of his not life, but gaming life, having a consistent group for any amount of time was a struggle and a half. For the first 7 years or so, the only consistent person I had to game with was my brother. And there were years
Hmm.
where it was just him and me, and we'd roll up a bunch of characters, and he'd have like a bunch of PCs, and I'd have a bunch of my own characters as DM PCs, and I'd run them all through an adventure or two. College was good for the 2 years that I was there, and then we tried to keep it together, but life got in the way, and yeah, we eventually got back together playing again. We were playing during the pandemic, some 30 years later.
Nice.
But now we're back to we haven't played in over a year now.
Right.
Yeah. And the thing was, when I was younger, is like the other problem was I was extremely shy until I knew we had a common interest. The problem was finding those people who were interested in D&D, in
Yeah.
the age before the internet, and even really before dial-up systems were a thing, was not easy. Um, and my gaming store, up until I got to high school and I realized that the one of the malls had a game shop in it, my gaming store was a hobby shop that did not cater to D&D. It was
Oh.
a it was it was mostly model trains, planes, and cars. The stuff to basically assembling them, painting them, whatever. All kinds of stuff. They just happened to have one rack that had Advanced Dungeons and Dragons stuff on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think everyone had that one game store slash, like we had a comic book shop,
Hmm.
and they had D&D, but it was like way off to the side in the corner without a light.
That sounds like my first real D&D shop. It was Game Masters. It used to be in the Bergen Mall in Paramus, New Jersey, in the basement. And the
Oh.
and the basement of this mall was, there's the talk about the not feeling the not feeling safe at a game store, and especially women not feeling safe at a gaming store. I would not have advised anyone who wasn't going down there specifically knowing where they were going, and probably with some, I would not have wandered down, would have felt safe
Yeah.
wandering down there. It was this dark little area that had a whole bunch of specialty shops.
Hmm.
The lighting was questionable at best, and
Yeah.
it was like a forgotten area of. I probably would not, if it wasn't for the fact that somebody introduced me to the fact that there was the shops down there. I would never have wandered down there. There was no real sign that there was anything down there to see, but there was a comic book store and a game store. Eventually, both of them moved. Well, the comic book store moved up to the top level. I think the game shop instead of moving up to the top level, moved out completely and moved down the road. I don't think that they're still there, but yeah, it was like, whoa, this is bizarre, and you've it's like, all right,
Yeah. And times were really different back then. There would be the sign up where you just had to call the guy, like, looking for
Hmm.
players, dial, 215, and you're like, what?
we
you
we
know,
we oh no, yes, you see, with us, what, ours, I couldn't even do that. It would have cost money. Because the
oh,
mall was in a different. This was back in the day when you had the different exchanges, and
yes,
different exchanges,
yes,
and you had your local exchanges, and they were the only thing that you could call and not get charged for, and anything else outside those local exchanges cost money. So yeah,
yeah,
no, we were even though probably only if you're even though that only probably would have cost about 20 or 25 cents, you call that often enough, and your parents are gonna have questions for you. Why are you doing? Why are you
right.
dialing this number?
And that's the part. It's finding the right group, right? And
Hmm.
the risks involved in that, and finding the right players. And beyond that, the right people, right?
Hmm.
If you're having a game in your house, that was always a challenge. Or just going to a random stranger's house. We had done that a few times, and you knock on the door and
Kids
you're
don't
like,
try
"Hey,
that
we're
these
here."
days. Oh my goodness.
You
I
never did that? You
oh
never
no,
knocked on the door?
wander going to random people's houses. No, yeah, no, we did. Oh my God. I'm mildly surprised that I survived my childhood years sometimes. Uh, but basic DMD, or basic GMing tips. No, more like basic survival tips. Things not to do. Um, yeah, no, finding a group is important. Finding the group for the well, see, to me, I think while I agree finding the group is important, I think you need to know what you want to run, and what
Yeah.
kind of game you want to run. Figuring out which game system you want to run,
Hmm.
because you're gonna need to when you find the group, you need to find a group that's going to want to play the game that you're running.
Yeah.
Um, Now, obviously, the more that you can do to make it so that they are, they can just show up and play, even better.
Right.
Um, but I think you kind of need to know, are you running a fantasy game or are you running a sci-fi game? Is it straight up adventure? Or are you doing like some kind of horror game?
Yeah.
What is it you want to do? Because not every group, even your close friends, some of them just are not going to want to play the game that you're running. So, fact of
Yeah.
life.
And Rob, I don't think we really ever talk about this, but um, as a player, do you even feel like and from a player aspect, do you feel like you're contributing to the group? And, the flip of that is the DM, are you letting players, getting around the table to everyone,
Oh yeah, that one,
right?
and that the group size. That's where group size will also play a thing. So let me get to Overcord for a second. So it says, so given its basic GM tips, do you think there's almost too much now telling you what to do and how to run the perfect game? Yes, I absolutely do. I think there are too many people who have this preconceived notion of how to run the perfect game. Um, I'm here to tell you that there is no one way to run a perfect game. Um, and I think that's why, to me, it's important that, especially a new GM, has an understanding of what it is they want to do. Because if you're not sure what you want to do, now if you just want to try out just to see if you feel comfortable mechanics, there are plenty of starter adventures for different starter kits for different games that you can literally just try one out just to see if you're comfortable being that role. And I guess that's probably one of the things that we should mention is like, CNC has a starter adventure. A lot of games. Shadow Dark had a starter kit that was released even before the game came out. A lot of games these days have a starter set where if you just want to see if you're comfortable being in that role, it's a good place to start because usually it's quick, it's quick, it's set up for you to succeed and get you comfortable in that particular role. But once you've decided that yes, okay, you can do this, you need to, after you've gotten to the conclusion that yes, I can handle this. I'm okay with doing the story aspects of it. I'm okay with doing, calling for dice rolls and, understanding the mechanics to a point. Anyone who tells you need to, as a GM, you need to know all the rules, stop listening to that person immediately. I've been running games for 43 years now. I'm here to tell you, I've forgotten more rules than I remember. All right. And basically having run 4 different versions of Dungeons and Dragons, plus, other games that are D&D adjacent, I mix up rule sets all the freaking time. So, whatever game I'm playing, I have to remind myself what the actual rules of that particular game is. But this is why we have books. This is why we have PDFs. Understand the basics and then just be prepared to adjust if you don't have something, be able to look it up, have that information at hand. It's my number one thing. GM screens get a little, sometimes I think that it gets a little crazy where everybody's releasing a GM screen for every single thing, not every single game, but really every single supplement that they've released for the game. They're releasing another GM screen. Unless there's really new information, you're just paying for the same stuff over again with new art. But a GM screen is great for having the quick and dirty rules that probably you're going to use, especially when it comes to combat, at your fingertips. But don't think for a second you need to know all the rules. You need to know enough to do the basics and such. Philosophy is hurl yourself into it. Be open with your players. Yes, be open with your players. For the love of God, if your players give you any crap about being a new GM, those are not your players. These are not the people you want around your table. And this is the other thing where I think a lot of new GMs struggle with is worrying about what their players are going to think. And unless you were unfortunate enough to come across those people who are just really basically live to be trolls, your players are and for me, this is one of my big things with conventions too. People who want to run a game at a convention but are worried about their players not enjoying. Your players are there to have a good time. And because they're there to have a good time, they're predisposed to enjoy the game. When you first get together and you're having that first session, they want to have a good time. So their mindset is to have a good time. So you're already ahead of the game. Don't let that worry about them having a good time be intimidating to you. You're already partially there. Yeah, you're going to get power gamers. I mean, at a con, and the games, the bigger the power, and this is one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan. I mean, I'll play in them, but I don't know that I would GM a high level game at a convention. Because the higher level the game, the more the power gaming comes into play. To me, the sweet spot for a convention game is somewhere between like level 4 and 7. For D&D 5e, I might even cut it down to between level 4 and 6. Wouldn't go any higher than 7 because that's when things start getting really weird. Um, I mean, George, what are your thoughts on that?
On the levels,
Yeah, I mean, well,
or
as far as for like new GMs and their
oh,
concerns about their player, as far as their players and being
I,
intimidated.
um, I feel one of the important parts for a DM, especially a beginner, is to take your time. Like slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? You want to go in there and I think really take it easy with your game, right? Don't rush yourself. Have a method down. Even to this day on my DM screen, I don't have important notes. I have notes like season, weather, terrain, because I those are things I commonly forget in the game, and that's what I want to bring out. I really want to focus on that because a lot of my games are overland, or just even the description of things.
Mm-hmm.
Slow it down, give the description, and I think by slowing down the game, it makes it better. Regarding levels, I
Mm-hmm.
think levels are important. I I like high level games because with Castles and Crusades, I'm not worried about power gamers as much as wanting them to be creative. The spell combos, or uh, just even bigger spells that I was
Do
playing
the
in one
weird.
game. Yeah. One of the guys was just casting create water as a cleric above other characters, like NPCs. The guy starts walking away after insulting the party and create water above his head just to have it drop on him. Because it adds to that role playing aspect.
Sure.
You do have to be worried about the power gamers, but I think that gets all countered out.
Hey, Kern, good to see you. Bilbo, I guess that's supposed to be, or nice using the CNC. So, as far as overcord for cons, my sessions are normally
Wow.
4 hour sessions, but between the 10 minutes early that you need to be cleaned up and the first 15 minutes, which is just normally, it ends up being about 3.5 hour session. But
Yeah.
scheduled for 4 ends up being realistically around 3.5 or so.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, no, and that's here's then that's where we get to the next thing. In addition to worrying about being the perfect GM, I'm loath to bring it up because I feel like the topic has finally stopped. I'm not entirely sure when it stopped. For all I know, it might have been because of the fact that Twitter went to hell and it never resurfaced elsewhere. But the quote unquote Matt Mercer effect, um, which frankly I never really thought was a thing. I, I'm I've heard so much about it, but it always sounds it's always one of those things that sounded like a friend of a friend of a friend had a situation. you know I think I had like one person tell me that something similar happened to them, but uh you know the best, probably one of the biggest things I would love to impart to every new GM is when you're trying to figure out how you want to run a game or what kind of game you're running, or basically what your GM style is you have to be true to yourself. Um, you know, understand that it's awesome. Go watch all the games that you can. Play in all the different games you can. Watch how all the various GMs run games for you. Figure out when you're doing that, figure out what's the things that you like that they do. What's the things you don't like? Um, my big thing is I hate rails. I I need even if the game has a railroad aspect to it, I need that illusion of choice. Make me believe that my choices made a difference, even if we're always going to have gotten to the same place anyway. Because once it feels like nothing I say or do or my character does matters, one of two things is going to happen. Either I'm just going to tune out, or my character is going to rebel. I don't mean to do it in a way to wreck the game, but it's one of those things where I will find the thing that my character would do,
Yeah.
and I'm going to do, and I'll end up doing it. I need that, and as a GM, now here's the thing: there's also the understanding that if you're running a con game, or if you've agreed with your players that you're running a boxed adventure, especially not so much the campaigns, because the full on adventure path campaigns are a different animal. I've got my own issues with them, because I think it's problematic to have that many levels where you're expected to go someplace, and there's only so far that you can veer off before you've like completely missed it. But if you're doing like a set adventure, there's a social contract there that says this is the adventure, this is what you're in for, and you understand that that's the way to go. Like like Jay's game, Lord Gazumba's game. You understand that this is this is your mission. You're usually part of, he's got reasons why your character's there and they're doing, and that's the thing. There's a reason why the character's there. It makes sense. It's part of their back, it goes in with their, their backstory or whatever it is, or whatever organization they're in. But you understand that this is the mission at hand and you go do it, and that's fine. I've run into an issue where I look at an adventure and it says that the characters need to go here. And like the reasoning that's given makes no sense whatsoever. It's terrible. It's like, why?
You brought up an interesting part too. The rebel player, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one who doesn't want to go on the railroad tracks and follow the adventure. I was once that player. And it's interesting because usually I go with the flow, and I was like, this isn't something I or my character would want to do. And
you need to make it make sense to me.
Yeah.
If it's just you've got to go here because that's where the next thing is, that's not, it's, we're going to run into a row. Now the other part of it is I mentioned watching all the various DMs, what they would do, that what you like about their game, what you don't like about their game. The other part to this is learning what your strengths are. Is your strength in descriptions? Is your strength in voices? If you can't do and I can't do voices for the life of me. I have a very, very, very narrow set of different voices I can do. Like I can do a squeaky kind of like a squeaky voice type thing, for like a gnome or maybe even a halfling, or, I can kind of do like a funny voice there. They all kind of sound similar. Somehow my dwarves ended up with like a Southwestern Texas style accent to them. I don't know how that happened, but I think it partly because I was playing a dwarven gunslinger in Pathfinder 2, and it just kind of sort of went that route. And I've been, I can't stay with a Scottish accent, so I've got Texan dwarves. But if you can't do voices, don't try to do voices. Do, learn to use different tones. Does one use a more forceful tone when they speak, or do they overpronounce every word? Or do they enunciate every single syllable? Just slight variations are enough, just enough to kind of give them the idea that they're talking to someone different.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, a record. Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely, Jay. You get a hell of a lot done in the 4.5 hours. Um, but learn. Are you the you mentioned talking about descriptions before, and that's one of the things that I I love being descriptive. And I was more for years. I was theater of the mind because I didn't have access to miniatures. I didn't have access to
Mhm.
virtual tabletops. We were and in college we were 12 guys sitting around, sometimes up 10, between 8 and 12 people sitting around a pool table playing 80 82nd edition with mid to high level characters at some point, where I was doing this all in my head
Yeah.
because we were poor college students. We could afford the books, and that's about it. And sometimes we were
Yeah.
sharing books because we were poor
Yeah.
college students. So, it was like just trying to visualize and making sure that I was keeping track of where I can't do that to my satisfaction anymore in terms of visualizing. Say I do use VTTs for larger sometimes shorter combat. I'll just do descriptions and complete theater of the mind. But I want to get better with descriptions because I've come to feel that my descriptions of like terrain has gotten stale. Like I'm always
Yeah.
describing forest terrain the same way, jungle terrain, and I want to I want to get more descriptive into it. I'm a big fan, but one of the things, especially, and CNC kind of brought this back for me, is using you mentioned all five senses.
Yeah.
Everything, every description should have, in order to bring that out, use the senses. This is when you're storytelling. What don't tell them what they feel. Tell them what scents are in the air. How strong is the breeze? Is there bird song happening? Is it loud? Are there things moving through is there sound of stuff moving through the underbrush? All of those things play into painting that picture and building that immersion.
Yeah. Um, using all five senses. A really good example is from Pace Setter Games.
Mm-hmm.
It's their version of T1, A Thing in the Valley. And it's a great little adventure. Inside of it is an encounter, and it's 12 pilgrims. The black robe pulled up over
Mm-hmm.
their head, um, and they're pulling a horse. Okay, I'm sorry, they're the horses.
Okay.
They're pulling a wagon with a rider
Mm-hmm.
and a young boy,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a smell of lavender because some of the pilgrims have sensors and swinging them back and forth. Um, and they add in little pieces like that. And here, what's happening is they're actually zombies under his command, the driver's command, and the lavender is hiding the smell of the rot. And they at times you hear them moan, and you don't know if it's from the weight or if it's from the them. You don't really expect them to be undead.
Right.
Um, so now all of a sudden it's a little bit mysterious to the players. It's something to investigate, but you're starting to play upon the senses, the smell of the lavender, the groaning or moaning noises. You know, uh, the whole site is throwing you off. So you're starting to appeal to different things, and especially with CNC, one of the nice things to play up for the characters, like playing a human is great because you get the three primes,
Mm-hmm.
but the half orc gets the smell, the scent ability. So now you're actually including that half orc in the game. The elf can see a stop sign at what, a mile, or read a stop sign.
Mm-hmm.
That's impressive. So now all of a sudden you can be like, hey, you know what? Some of the zombie or some of the pilgrims are walking with a limp. It could be, that they're barefoot, or, some other, you know, visual impact to the game.
and it's important that when you do that, don't make them roll for it. I mean, for
Oh, yeah.
the half orc smell thing, there is no roll for it. It's there are certain things where they can smell, and for an elf might be able to see something at a distance that wouldn't. Or it's a great way to you mentioned it's important to get the characters involved. Um, I'm big on trying. I work very hard to try to make sure that I've come up with a way for each character to have their spotlight, especially if I have players that
Yeah.
I know that tend to be kind of quiet, because I want to make
Hmm.
sure that their character is doing something and hopefully kind of like draw them in and get
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
going.
Let them contribute. And, you know, if there's enough time to prep in a game, sometimes it's nice that if like, especially in a con game, so and so is going to play the half orc, let them get the note that says they smell the lavender.
Hmm.
Give them the ability to tell it to the party, because otherwise, once you say you smell the lavender, the whole group knows it,
Right.
you know, and it could give them a little bit of that extra buff if we have
That's a good
time to
point. I,
prepare
yeah.
that far.
Well, that's the yeah that the which I need to find a. That's one of the things I think I need to find a way to do that with my players for stream games is get figuring out what method to use for passing notes to the players. It's a little tricky because I'm a one person shop, so I normally am doing three or four different things at the same time while running the
Yeah.
game. But that's a good point. Passing notes, and even when you're creating, putting together the adventure, having Overcord mentioned having a describe these senses on the DM screen, having little post-it notes for different encounters,
Yeah.
what they see, what they smell, hear, as they're getting up to building that sense of anticipation.
Yeah.
Um, Using the weather, I think I've gotten a little. I feel like I've gotten a little away from using the weather against the players, and I don't know if that's been a conscious thing because because I'm worried that they're going to find it boring.
Yeah.
But weather as jeopardy can lead to some very interesting situations. Um, you know,
So,
go ahead.
uh, a small trick I did with my group, it was like one of our first games. And, I kept in the the classic trope of you all meet at the inn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What was different was it was raining outside. And when each one stepped in, and I went to my best role player first, a little bit strategic, and I'm like, hey, John, it's pouring outside. You step into the inn. What do you do? What are you saying? And he immediately picked it up and started to go with it that, you know, oh, first I take off my hat and I shake my hat all over, the barmaid and, adding in like little pieces of flair that he likes to do.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's the best part. You start with you find out who's the strongest in different aspects, and you rely on them, just as I did. Shaking the hat off, complaining about it, wringing out the beard, right? That, I'm a dwarf and I hate the rain, and trying to get all the water out of his hair.
Now, what? And here's the thing: not all of your players are necessarily going to be role play heavy. They may even when it's their story, they may struggle with it a bit. I've got a friend,
Yeah.
college buddy, known him for since the early '90s. He's one of the players playing around the table. He played in my 5e campaign during the pandemic. We had the couple year long campaign. Um,
Mhm.
he's not a role player. He was never role playing was not never his thing.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he enjoyed role playing games, but puzzles and things to figure out, and traps and thing tactical stuff of that nature. There we go. You need finding those things where they have their shot at finding the
Yeah.
stuff that works for them, because again, not everybody is going to be that high end high end enthusiast. I'm not even saying high end and in terms of being good at it, because it doesn't matter if you're good at role playing. It's it's
Yeah,
the it's all about the enthusiasm. Are they
right.
enthusiastic about it? Because if they're not, then you find other ways to bring them, into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, for my buddy, it was, combat was great with combat, was great with situations where had to figure out a way to get between through something.
Well, and Rob, it's important to be a good DM and give everyone the spotlight. It's also important, I think, from a player aspect
Hmm.
to know when to back up too.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah, for sure.
you, it's giving other people that spotlight. And I'll try to do that when I'm a player. I'm like, hey, you know what? This is a puzzle. I'm pulling back and I'm not gonna, do anything for the next couple of minutes.
I think that's
You
one
know?
of the reasons for me it's important that I make sure that I have prompts for given players, because
Uh-huh.
because if the silence goes on long enough, somebody there's always going to be that one player who's going to fill that void. And
Yeah.
honestly, it's not necessarily a bad it's not necessarily a bad thing that they fill the void if no one else is going to come if you just leave it there. You're going to have the person who is the most extroverted, who's going to say, all right, we've been quiet for too long, I guess I'll fill in. um,
Yeah.
which can be a problem. Diamond Anvil said each player brings their own strengths to the table. Absolutely. The key is to let
Yeah.
each player show, 100%. 100%. Um, here's another thing. In addition to making sure that, figuring out ways to involve your players in the game, whether it's through role play prompts, it's through things that, and this is where I really like the fact that a game like CNC and old school D&D, they had a lot of variation between the different races and classes, is the fact that not everybody had the same skill set. Um, I like that CNC has deep vision, dark vision, twilight vision, infravision. Is it infravision?
Yeah.
Dusk vision. No, and not infra. I don't think it's
Dusk.
infrared. Has and dusk vision, where there are differences between them, so they don't all have the same type of night vision. Which D&D became 5e is like dark vision now. It's why would you play somebody without dark vision? I
Right.
it's you're I mean, yeah, there might be some advantage to playing human, but not enough. Have the differences, so that whether it be class ability, race slash species ability, or whatever, ancestry, or whatever term you want to use. I'm good with all of them. Um, allow that differentiation so that they have a moment to shine, and make sure that you put in those opportunities for that particular class to, or that particular character to shine. Um, Another thing, there's one thing that's very important for the new GM. You're supposed to have fun too. Don't
Oh,
forget
totally.
that. The table is most fun when everybody's having a blast, and that everybody includes the GM. Have your outrageous NPCs. Have the BBEG that has the BBEG that has a plan. Have the BBEG that has a plan that's an awful plan. Just
Oh, totally.
have
Totally.
you want to have fun? Have a big bad that's absolutely incompetent.
Yeah. And give him like a lucky factor. That's the only way he makes it through is luck.
Okay, but
The dumbest of luck.
blind luck just seems to get the things. Hey, it's good enough for halflings. It's good enough for a big bad.
And
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's
real
all
quick,
kinds of ways to do it.
one of the things is you might have to refresh your quotes too in life. The Monty Python quotes are still good a lot of times.
Mm.
But in the last D&D game or CNC game I ran, they asked an NPC, like they asked a guard a question, and I couldn't help but do it like the classic, or it's becoming a classic. I was once an adventurer like you until I took an
An
arrow to
arrow
the
to the
knee.
knee.
A- and I needed to buy myself time, and I wanted a little bit of fun. Also in the same game, I used a Napoleon Dynamite quote. I spent it in, I spent it. Well, what did you do or something? And I said I spent it in time with in Alaska with my uncle, shooting or hunting wolverines or something like that. Just a little bit different because we're getting older, and the younger crowd has new quotes.
Oh, Dirty Dwarf, who was on before, has his second character in my campaign. Um, just tells these stories about his grandfather, and like
Uh,
each one is like more ridiculous than the each one is more ridiculous than the last, and it's one of the. I don't know how the hell we kept up a straight face by the end of that stream because we were just
yeah,
waiting for whatever the next one was going to be. Yeah, you got to be careful because that can blow things completely up and you get nowhere. But
yeah.
sometimes it's not bad to have a session like that.
Um, the other is it's almost like Betty White from the Golden Girls telling one of her stories where, it gets more off the wall every time. That's a
Or
nice
Tim Conway with the Siamese elephants. If you've never seen that from the Carol Burnett show, and yes, I'm severely aging myself. Um, Tim Conway, Siamese elephants. The entire cast could not keep it together. Just
uh,
it was absurd.
my absolute favorite is Tim Conway as the dentist, and Harvey Korman just
Yes.
losing it. Um, you know,
Oh
but
man, those were the days.
those when you add that flavor into your game, when you personalize it, and actually I think that's my biggest advice is personalizing it, whether it's a joke or a part of the adventure or the villain, especially when a villain personalizes it. um in the last con event I ran over the weekend, the knight in the party was held by a cleric, an evil cleric. The last ranger, evil ranger, uh, needed to get away. There was nowhere to go. Okay. And he was going to get killed. The party just massacres everyone. He jumped on the knight's horse with the knight and just did a giddy up and took off. And she's like, "Are you stealing my horse?" I'm like, "I'm stealing it. Wait, I'm riding it like I stole it, and I did steal it." And it was just the rest of the, I don't know, half hour or so, hour, the player still would look at me and be like, "You took my horse." Because eventually he just tossed her off the horse and kept going.
Oh.
It's those, it was very personal. It was a direct attack. And I took something that she cherished, her horse.
Oh
You
boy.
know, I think that's when you really got something with a game. Rob, I think we're at time, but
Oh, we're past time, but there's nobody. Let's see. Let's see if there's any other things that we need to absolutely get to. Um, how do you gauge a successful game? Is everyone having fun? That's all you need. It
yeah,
doesn't matter. That's the only measure of success. Did you have fun? Do your players look like they've had fun? Dear players, if you've enjoyed the game that your GM has run for you, I don't care how long they've been running games for. Please tell them that you enjoyed it. Especially if you
yeah.
tell them a day after. Tell them then. Tell them a day after. You'll be doing them a world of good.
And
Um,
just because someone has played for a long time or DM'd for a long time doesn't mean they're great. And just because someone only played for like 2 or 3 years doesn't mean that they're going to be green. I played with a guy who I swore ran more games and had a lot of experience. And he told me he was only running it for like 2 years. And I was like, dude, that was one of the best games I ever played in. Sometimes fresher is better.
I think Overcord mentioned we still have stories of the horse surviving a dragon attack back 3 years ago. I remember the campaign that I ran at the frat house that had, we were sitting revenge of it sat around the pool table. The first time I played with some of the players that basically before the frat house thing even started was with some people who would eventually be part of that game in my dorm room running a session where the players never got out of the tavern, and it ended up basically the entire session ended up being a tavern brawl. And at one point, the one of the players got into a wrestling match that they lost to one of the barmaids, who was who was a very very strong woman, ex-adventurer, and beat the snot out of him.
That was a
Which
double take on my end.
it
Like,
was
what?
it was a lot of fun. It was one of those things where they we were. I don't even remember what the plan. I don't even remember what the plan for that adventure was. But yet, no, they never made it out of the tavern.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Hey, listen, sometimes you just roll with it.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So it is currently 7:50. Yeah, we've been going for a while. I know Jay is not running tonight. He's going to be streaming tomorrow. So I guess question, there's one last thing that we had here that I want to take a look at. What do you consider some of the best traits of a good DM? Good GM?
Oh my. Um, I really think it's as I've gotten older, I think
Mhm.
the story has changed, and it's the flexibility of the DM. Um, being able to read the room, watch the players, see who is interested in different aspects of the game, assessing all that rather quickly and adapting your game, or just even during the game. You ever have that combat that goes like more rounds than it needed to? It's just a series of misses.
Mhm.
Anymore, I'm quick to do and you dispatch the rest of the kobolds. The main threat is gone. We're just trying to, round after round of misses, just cut it off anymore. Things like that. Um, you know, Focus on the next thing that's going to get you some points. That's my feelings on the game. And and really it goes back to having fun.
I am.
Tell a good story, have fun.
Yeah, I'm overcord mentions listening, and that goes with the whole to me that goes with the whole reading the room.
Yeah.
Flexibility, yeah, absolutely, flexibility is huge. Um, there is nothing wrong as a GM. I want I am not that GM. But I in terms of what I'm about to say, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing all the prep work you need to make yourself feel comfortable. However much prep work you want to do, however much
Yeah.
you want to put into it. One of the worst mistakes you can make as a GM is forcing that prep work that you put in to be used. This is where railroading starts. This is when this is no longer a cooperative game. This is you imposing your story on your players, and what they're enjoying about the game doesn't matter. Um, have all that prep, whatever you feel comfortable. Understand that it could be 50 to 70% of that prep does not see the light of day in that particular session.
Yeah.
Um, you know, it, it's entirely possible. And that prep work will still be there for the next time. Maybe they'll hit it later. Might and or you might come to realize that the way that you were hoping that they were going to go is not something that they're into, and pivot from there. But yeah, flexibility is huge. You can't, if you're an inflexible GM, you're going to run short of players at some point. You might find players because there are going to be people who are desperate enough for a game that they'll go along with whatever, and they may just want to roll some dice, and that's fine. But if you want a game that's going to thrive, if you want players that are going to want to come back and be a part of the next, whatever comes next, um, you need to have that flexibility. Overcord's right. You need to learn from what happened, both good and bad. Not every
Yeah.
session is going to be a banger. They're not all going to be great. You're going to have sessions where it feels like nothing worked. Sometimes, sometimes that's going to be in your head, which is part of why completely in your head and nowhere else. Which is why I mentioned if you're a player and you enjoyed what your GM did, tell them what you enjoyed.
Yeah.
Let them know what specific aspects of the thing that you enjoyed. You don't have to tell them what you didn't enjoy, unless something is well and truly bothering you. You don't necessarily have to tell them what you didn't enjoy, because as a GM, you should infer, well, these are the things that worked. If they didn't mention those other things, well, maybe that wasn't great. Maybe it's something I need to minimize, take a look at, and so on and so forth.
You know,
Um, but
what I like about Overcord's statement about
mhm,
the learn from what happened, the good and the bad,
yeah,
absolutely. And it's also um, putting something into place. So one, actually more than one DM I've had, um, they focus on, I'll say like the left side of the table and not the right. And what I've done is my thing is when I ask for what everyone is doing, I try to go around the whole table so that way I get everyone's action on what they're doing before I respond to something. Because a lot of times you can have players, the first player goes, I open up the door. And it's like, okay, you open up the door and you're focused on that player.
mhm,
Meanwhile, the other six people in the room have no action on what they're doing. You're solely focused on that one player opening up the door. And what I try to do is I go, next person, what are you doing? He's going towards the door to open it. What are you doing? And the guy's like, I searched the bed, you know, and I tell my players in advance, you can search the bed also. Just because one person's doing it doesn't mean two people can't do it. And I try to get around the whole table. Um, Alternately, I will start at the opposite side of the table. If I feel like I've gone to the left too many times for their actions, I'll start with the right and go around the table. Just so that way I'm trying to give everyone equal airtime and opportunity to do something in the game. Even the person who's guarding the door, because a lot of the more shy folks will be like, oh, I'll stand back and I'll just, make sure nothing comes up behind us. That's when the wandering encounter happens. I'll pass a note and be like, there's a tentacle creeping down the corridor, and that's enough for them. And again, it's the card, right? So that way I'm not saying, hey, and then focusing on that player, there's a tentacle coming down, and everyone at the table drops what they're doing. It gives that one player that moment to be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go investigate this. I don't need the rest of the party. It puts them in control and they're a little bit more empowered on what they want to do.
I like that.
I like that one. It's learning from it, but also putting something into place so that way, it doesn't happen as much.
I think one of the things that I've tried to do is when somebody decides to do I'm just opening the door, is at least making sure that I know where everybody else is.
Yeah.
Because you open enough doors, you're going to find stuff behind it, and that stuff isn't necessarily going to be happy to see you.
I actually had a player who someone moved his miniature and they kind of put him near the door and he was like, whoa, 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 stop. And he's like, my miniature is not there. And he had actually a bad experience with this happening to him. And he was like, I don't want to be near the door. Like, don't move my miniature, keep it where it is. Everything's going to be fine. And a very, calm and passive guy, but he was in that one time where something went wrong and, it nearly killed his character, you know.
Oh man. All right. So I think we've covered a lot of stuff. I'm not and I think enough of it does fall under the basic things that GM should know. There's a lot more we could get into, but I think a lot of it ends up being more specific to a specific rule set and how to run a specific type of game. Um, so yeah, okay. I think we've covered a lot. I want to thank everybody who popped in tonight. The chat's been great.
Yeah.
Enjoying getting feedback from people. Always a great thing. Let's do this. I've been trying to figure out who the heck we're going to raid into because our normal Thursday night is not running tonight, and who do I know? I've got people that I follow usually because follow them through somebody else. I was hoping at 8 o'clock somebody else I knew would be jumping in. Um, hmm.
Let's raid Rob's house. Yay. No.
You can do that. I'm not entirely sure that'd be the best of ideas. My dog might not find that all that amusing.
Bring treats, and vodka.
Hmm. I like vodka. Vodka's a good thing.
Oh, Rob, Gary Kahn, 2026. We found the best place for Long Island iced teas.
Ooh.
Are you a Long Island iced tea fan?
Um, Overcord, if you can hang out for 2 more minutes, let's do the raffle before you go. I'm gonna close the giveaway. And here we go. Draw a winner. All right, Overcord, you can head to bed. Thank you so much for hanging in and staying with us such a late hour out there in Scotland.
Nice.
Pleasure to have you here. Um, so the funny thing about Long Island iced teas, I mean,
Oh, no.
I, I've hung out with too many bartenders, and I've
Uh-huh.
got spent too many years going to karaoke with too many bartender friends, and the thing with a Long Island iced tea is when you order a Long Island iced tea from a bartender, what you're basically telling them is you don't care about alcohol. You're just looking to get wasted.
Yeah.
It literally, I mean, it's that because they can put the worst crap in a Long Island iced tea and still make it taste good.
Yeah.
It is it's an invitation to get the well, basically all the bottles in the well, and all the cheapest stuff, which one it's gonna get you drunk. Don't get me wrong, it'll taste good. It's gonna get you drunk, and if you're prone to hangovers, it's gonna give you a doozy because you're drinking crap.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I honestly don't remember the last time I actually had Long Island iced tea.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, it's the bar. My friends who are bartenders all tell me that I've heard from more than like pretty much all of them, pretty some variation of the same thing. It's like, yep, nope, it's
Yeah.
just an invitation to throw whatever, throw the garbage alcohol we have into a thing and serve it because person
Well,
drinking it person drinking it doesn't care about quality. They just want something that tastes good that's going to get them smashed.
we ordered from the Lake Geneva Social Club, I believe it is.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, very good drinks
Well,
all night long.
I got a there's one of these years got maybe next year also do I've heard mixed stories about the speakeasy there. I'd like to check it out, but there is apparently a speakeasy. that I'd like to try. Have a great night, Overcord. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks.
And yeah, it'd be great if you got I had a player at my table this year from England, so Scotland, you're right there. Somewhere in Lake Geneva, History Prof.
And we had Commander Pete
Yeah,
as
Commander
well.
Pete. Pete is in England, right? Or am I losing my
Oh,
mind?
you know what? I believe he's English, but he lives in Belgium.
Oh, well, that would make the Belgian the beer makes more sense then, and the Belgian chocolates. Uh, oh boy. All right. So let's see. I'm checking to see if anyone else has come on that I know, because right now I'm looking at either raiding into goblets and warlocks who are doing some home brewing in Foundry. Old school nerd who is doing some D&D, and what's the other one? Oh, Casters and Castles is a big stream. I they don't need our help. Um, so let's go with old school nerd. We're gonna read in. So once again, I want to thank everyone for stopping in. Thanks for thanks for joining the conversation tonight and watching us bounce all around like crazy. We might have actually talked about some real basic GM tips somewhere in that conversation. I'm not sure. Your mileage may vary. But George, thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Thank you, Rob.
And a reminder, I will be um, let's see if I can guess the. Hey, I got it right. I will be on Guild Superior on Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, I believe. We are playing Shadow Dark in support of the ACLU as a fundraiser. So come out, watch some Shadow Dark. I've got my half orc fighter Grieg. First level. Let's see if he survives halfway to second level. Good luck to him. Dave's one shots are notoriously deadly, especially when it's a fundraiser and especially when it's Shadow Dark. Any one of those any one of those things would be true, but in this case, it's all of them. And with that, we're going to go to stream ending, and we will be rating in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye now.